Welcome into the Irish Squad Show. I'm Joe George, post-game host, and football's not really back, but it's nice to see some guys with some helmets and jerseys on.
I'm Alan Pinkett, two-time All-American, and the question is, how can Notre Dame win a national championship in the spring? We'll tell you.
And I'm Allison Hayes. I've been covering the Irish for more than 20 years, and in that time, this might be the most intriguing spring football, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Hi, Reggie Brooks here, 1992 All-American. And this spring is probably the most critical spring of Coach Marcus Freeman's career, if you ask me.
Play like a champion today. It's the Fighting Irish Squad Show. Everything Notre Dame Fighting Irish every week. Breaking down the biggest news and game-changing plays the way only Locked On Podcast Network can. Wake up the echoes. The Fighting Irish Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Irish Squad Show here on the Locked On Irish YouTube and audio channels. Joe, Alan, Allison, and Reggie here with you for the next hour as we talk all things Notre Dame football. Spring ball it's arrived. We're getting closer and closer to week one of the season for the Irish taking on the Wisconsin Badgers. We'll talk about some recruiting stories from Alan and Reggie, their first time on campus, how quickly they committed. I'm sure they got something for us good to tell us. We'll discuss the running back room, how we're viewing it in spring right now, and just big questions around it. And we'll talk a little of little lawsuits as well as the NCAA coming down on Trinidad Chambliss, or at least trying to. But Alan, I'm going to start with you because of all the things that were said at press conferences this weekend, you're the only one that's upset because you didn't make a trademark. What happened, Alan? You didn't get it done in time?
I should know better. I didn't know it would catch on like it did. But, it only makes too much sense. But, yes, I did share with the people here a press conference of a Notre Dame player saying, LND, leave no doubt. And so I'm like, damn, just like, three-peat, how that got trademarked. So I missed my opportunity. But I tell you what, I'd rather have the natty than any money I could get from a trademark. So hopefully it will all work out. But it all starts right now. And it really comes down to a mindset that they need to have right now. And they can set the culture in the spring so that when they get to the fall, they've already built a program where it's instilled in them that they need to leave no doubt against anybody that they play. And look, let's face it, nobody likes practice. I didn't like practice when I was there, but I knew practice was a necessary thing. And I also knew practice was the way you got better. And the way I always explained it to these young men whenever I got a chance to talk to them is you only have 44 shots to prove to people that you deserve to play on Sunday. Now, I'm dating myself because now they play 12 games a year. I said 44 shots because that was when we played 11 games a year. But that's not that many chances to try and prove that you can play in the NFL. So how do we maximize those 44 opportunities? Practice. And you want to practice eventually how you're going to play. And what I mean by that is you're free and loose in practice. And I know that, I'm guilty too, because in practice, somebody throws me the ball, I catch it in my hands. I might do a one-hand catch or something. Get in the game, they throw the ball at me. I'm, trying to battle it. I'm going to rest it up against my body because I'm nervous. So the goal is to get it so that when you get in a game, it's just like how you practice. If you can know your stuff so well that you can relax in a game, you're going to play better. And I think that all that starts now, but it's going to be mostly mindset. But yes, there was a missed opportunity, but it's LND from here on out.
Reggie, what do you think about spring practice this year? Just like how important is it for the culture? What Alan was just talking about, and what what you would be hoping Marcus Freeman and company are trying to accomplish this spring.
I think this is a critical spring, just from the standpoint of, you get a lot of guys back, and that's something, and particularly number 13. Is he still going to be 13, or is he going to change his number? Because from year to year, you just never know who's going to be what number. But you have, and Mike Denbrock mentioned it. We actually have a quarterback that it's not their first year. This is he's settled. You know what you have. It's a comfort level. Not only does the CJ have a comfort level, but Denbrock has a comfort level. The quarterback coach has a comfort level that they know, and the receivers. So you know what you're getting. And in that regard, you gotta, like I said, I'm gonna keep on with the mantra, leave no doubt. And it starts right now, how you practice. And Alan was talking about how it's important to get the most out of the practices, because it's not a lot of opportunities. And again, you have those limited, and practice is even limited now. Back when we played, coach wasn't feeling it, you're going to be out there for a while. Now, they don't have that opportunity. So you cannot afford to slip up in practice, because that's an opportunity that you could miss out on. And it's the little things that they're going to have to do on a consistent basis. And one of the things, I was listening to some of the press conferences, something that was I heard consistently from the players and coaches is being consistent. And you learn how to be consistent in practice, because you learn the plays, the better you are at, understanding. I was listening to James Flanagan, little Jimmy, I call him, because dad teammate of mine. But it's the better you understand. This is the time when you need to learn the playbook code. So when you go into fall ball and get ready in the season, it's more about reacting and responding to the stimuli of a coverage or of a blocking scheme or whatever the case may be. You don't need to be thinking. Football is a reactionary sport, and it becomes reactionary when you become so comfortable with the playbook, what you're supposed to do. When you see something, this is how I'm supposed to react to it. If I'm supposed to have a double team and the guard is starting to slip, hey, I can catch him, because, hey, I need to give him a little more body presence, but I know I got to get up to the linebacker. But if you just say, hey, I got to get up to the linebacker, you allow them to split the double team, and no running back loves the splitting of the double team. That is like a cardinal rule or cardinal sin. Double team gets split, somebody's splitting your lip, and that is not fun. So the better they can get to understanding what their responsibilities are, the better chance that they have of being successful across the board. And I've always said, football is the consummate team sport. It just takes one person to screw up to kill a play. And by, everybody learning what they're supposed to do, becoming consistent, and having that comfort level with the guy next to you, you see and hear and you respond, because you're not thinking. If you're thinking, you're a step behind and you're screwed. But if you have the confidence in what you're doing, and you learn it through practice, and you're playing at a high rate of speed, your ability to react at a faster pace will put you a step ahead of the guy that you're going against.
Allison, you obviously have a very different perspective with spring practice, and you've been covering the Irish for a long time. And I'm just curious, what you see when you're there, and how different, maybe even how different it is with Marcus Freeman compared to past coaches, and just kind of what you would look for when you're out there.
Well, one thing that's interesting to me is I've talked with several former players over the years, and we talk about spring, and it's like, oh, it's just spring, every other, oh, it's just spring. Don't read too much into it. Oh, don't get too caught up in it. It's still just practice. It's just practice. But this year they opened up spring practice and had not one, but two skirmishes out there. They were getting chippy with each other. They were fired up. They're knocking each other around. So tell me they're not fired up. This is a different kind of spring. They got slighted last year, and that's going to stick with them. And there is a chip on their shoulder heading into spring. And these guys are probably more motivated for spring football than they've ever been in their entire life. So I think it's just a different feeling, and that's exciting to be around and to see it and feel it and be in South Bend and, to know, because it feels like this team is special and it has what it's going to take them to a national championship possibly. And so, but what you look at most for this year is, well, one, as Reggie pointed out, this is a big one for Marcus Freeman because these are all his guys now at this point. These are all his players in. He's ready to roll with them and see what they can do. And for different than in years past, this is the first time since 2020 when Ian Book was a returning starting QB. It's the first time in 6 years that Notre Dame has a returner, not starting somebody new for the season. So they've got that kind of comfortability with CJ Carr returning. And according to their roster, he is still wearing number 13, at least for spring. But CJ is back, but who's his backup? And that's going to be a big question mark and a big theme throughout this spring is, we've sort of taken it for granted the last few years because they've had a plethora of quarterbacks who could be starters and are already starters at other programs now as they've transferred out in Kenny and Steve. Well, those guys are gone. And so now it's CJ and he's all by himself. And so if something happens to CJ, with CJ in, I think everyone who follows college football feels like CJ has the ability to lead this team to a national championship. If CJ goes down, who is the backup going to be? So that's something to really be keeping an eye on this spring. From, video I've seen, reports I've been watching, of course it's early enrollee Noah Grubbs and then redshirt freshman Blake Hebert. Those are the two that are really, going to be battling for the most part, at least throughout spring, to try to get that backup role. And from the looks of it, Grubbs, he's a little narrow framed right now. He still looks like he should be in high school because he should be in high school still. So it'll be interesting to see him, getting into that weight room and building and bulking up a little bit and growing into a college quarterback body. But he's got a lot of velocity on his passes. He's able to throw into tight windows and in deep vertical routes. But something to note, he did throw a pick 6, but no big deal, right? He shook it off and he was able to compose himself and get back out there and keep moving forward. We see CJ Carr do that too. He's going to make mistakes here and there. He threw 2 picks in the first practice, but he rolls, that stuff rolls right off of his back. So that's a good quality in a quarterback. You don't want to see a guy who gets caught up in that mentally. With Blake Hebert, he's drawing some comparisons to former Notre Dame quarterback, now Colts QB Riley Leonard, in his build and in his abilities in terms of, the way his skill set, I guess you would say. He can evade pass rushing. He can process zone read plays, running the ball. He's got good arm strength, but he's still sort of in that learning phase of, deciphering, reading defenses, being able to slide protections, things like that. So he's developing still as well. And he's got the right tools. But it's just who's going to kind of start having a little separation there as they move forward. So the quarterback position is very intriguing to me. The backup, I should say, quarterback position. And also offensive line. That is really interesting. And you should note 2 projected starters in center, Ashton Craig, and still Charles Jagasaw. They are both sidelined for all of spring. So we will not see Charles Jagasaw until at least fall practice now. And at the same time, he's still not out there, but he might still be the best offensive lineman Notre Dame has. We just can't see him out there participating yet. He had to have a 5th surgery, I believe. So he's just been dealing with so much from that ATV accident this past summer. He had a torn pec. He's had a knee injury. It's just been one injury after another for Charles. So they are still very much trying to figure out this lineup for the offensive line. And it's looking like right now, junior Anthony Knapp, he's going to be the man at left tackle. He's a 2-year starter, so he brings back some experience. But he did practice at left guard in some team periods. Redshirt freshman Will Black is at left tackle with the first team offense. Redshirt junior Joe Otting is at center right now. Redshirt junior Sullivan Absher at right guard. And then last year's starting right guard, redshirt sophomore Gerby Lambert, he's now playing with the number ones right tackle. And then, and Gerby, he's been one of those guys that's been a standout so far early on in spring practice. And he's been beating big time defensive edge rusher Boubacar Traore in some one-on-one matchups and even took him down to the ground. So that's going to be interesting to see how he develops. And another one to keep an eye on, Devin Houston, he's making the transition from defense now to offense. And he's been practicing with the twos with second team at left guard.
Well, I gotta say, that is very disconcerting. I do love seeing. I would love to see Knapp kick down the guard. I just think he's a better fit for guard because he doesn't have long enough arms. And to hear about Gerby at right tackle, that tracks for me. But Jagasaw, good Lord, can we just put this man in some bubble wrap? And
No.
this is it. And so what you're saying, Allison, is we don't have a backup quarterback, pretty much. That's where we're at with that.
Well, not yet. No.
Okay. Yeah, we got
That is TBD.
So we just need to make sure he don't breathe on CJ.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Don't even breathe on him. If you look at him too long, we might have to. You got to go run. Just
Yes.
don't even look at him. Don't even look in his direction. But he is. I mean, I saw some of some of the clips from spring practice. You can tell the comfort level that he has.
Oh, yeah, he's spinning it.
Yeah,
He is.
and you can just sense the confidence and the comfort level with his receivers, but also just in what he's doing. I mean, this is kind of night and day from, the beginning of last year to this year. I'm definitely feel much better about that. But the offensive line, that is disconcerting news because we need to get 5 guys that can anchor this offensive line. That is the most critical group that we need to get in line this spring.
All right, let's take our first break here. Let's get some other questions about spring ball from Alan and Reggie. The questions they have about this team and where it stands right now, plus a big recruiting weekend for the Irish. And I just really want to hear some stories from Reggie and Alan, their first time on campus and what they thought and what it was like that first time they showed up to Notre Dame. We'll get to that next year on the Irish Squad Show. Today's episode of the Irish Squad Show is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Today's show is also brought to you by Coast Pay. Coast Pay is giving Locked On College listeners up to $2,000 credit for your business when you get started today. If you manage a crew, construction, HVAC, landscaping, any operation with trucks on the road, you already know how messy gas and material spending can get. Cards get shared, receipts disappear, and month-end turns into a headache. Coast Pay fixes all of that. Coast Pay is the modern fuel card and expense management tool built specifically for fleets. Fuel maintenance, materials, all on one card with real control and instant visibility. Every transaction shows up the moment it happens. No surprises. If someone fuels up at an odd time or tries to buy something outside their limit, you'll know instantly. Right now, CoastPay is offering our listeners up to $2,000 credit when you get started at coastpay.com/lockedoncollege. Go to coastpay.com/lockedoncollege to see how you can earn up to $2,000 credit. Terms apply. That's the Coast Visa commercial credit card is issued by Celtic Bank. All card accounts are subject to approval. Alan, any big questions for you about spring ball? What you're looking for. It's whether it's position battles, anything you got.
Well, I appreciated the update that Allison gave me on the backup quarterback position, and I think I share the same sentiment as Reggie about getting that old line solidified. But whether they are physically practicing or not, now is a great time for them to establish some sort of cohesion, all be on the same page in terms of what type of attitude they're going to have this year. They cannot waste a game because you can't trust this committee, and you can't lose more than one game, and they shouldn't lose any. But you have to approach it with that mindset that you got to win them all just to get a shot to prove that you're playing. And I think all that begins in the spring. And so I don't have a question so much about any one position as I do the overall mental state of the team. And you said one thing that was interesting, Allison, that I didn't even think about, or should I say Allie, that these are all Marcus's players, and that makes a huge difference because there's a culture already established with the type of player that he brings in. And I guess, I was one of those in the beginning. I didn't necessarily want them to hire Marcus because I didn't want this to be his first head coaching job. This job, it belongs to a CEO, but boy, has he, shown me a thing or two about how to be not just a head coach, but a leader of men. And, I think there's a lot of schools in the NFL that would love to have the brand that he has created in their locker room or in their state or city. So we're damn lucky to have him, because I think that he has totally bought into the culture of Notre Dame. And I guess the thing I appreciate about him the most is he doesn't use the academic standards as an excuse not to get good players. He embraces it, and I think because of that, he'll get much better players, and I think it already shows. He gets much better players than Kelly ever got.
Reggie, what's your you got any questions for spring? What you're looking for, what you want to see out of this team?
Well, I listened to a few of the, Chris Ash, and had the distinct pleasure of meeting Chris at one of our events, of course, this past week with Coach Holtz's services. And when listening to him, the thing that really stuck out to me was, and he was honest about it, which was refreshing. He had to get to know the players, and the players had to get to know him. He also had to get to know the coaches. So, when we look at, kind of the start of this last season, it was very noticeable that, there was not a lot of cohesion or understanding of what the players, brought to the table. But there was also an issue of them not trusting the coach because they didn't know him. They knew Golden, so they had that rapport, and you can't understate the importance of the relationship. And you were talking about Coach Freeman and how he's established the culture, and that's because the players that he brought in, they've developed a trust in him. But you also have to have a trust in the assistant coaches that you coach for, and you can see it. And that's one of I mentioned this the last time we were on. Is like that's going to be an interesting dynamic with the coaches that have left. How quickly can these guys get up to speed and develop a cohesion as a staff, but also as players to coaches and coaches to players that understand their capabilities, what they can do. And so I really, thought that, Chris, when he talked to Coach Ash, brought that up, I was like, that can't be understated, the importance of, hey, I know what these guys can do. And the fact they've gotten so many guys back from last year, they're established and they're working from a point of comfort. I don't like using comfort because we don't want to be comfortable, but they have an understanding of what they're supposed to do, what the coaches are looking for, and it also helps with play calling. Because that was one of the things. It was like I said, when Coach Freeman was talking about the back end doesn't really mesh with the front line, the front seven. That's because there's no continuity and a established relationship. And I know I mentioned tight ends, and my boy's gone, Eli. But I did, in listening to Denbrock, I really think they're going to go tight end by committee, and I think that's fine. And hopefully we'll see more tight ends on the field. I'm just saying, it would be nice to get a double tight end set every now and then, and maybe a jumbo package. I don't know, but in that, they said, hey, there's a plan for the replacement, and that's something that I was concerned about, was the tight end room and the running back room. But I wasn't concerned about one guy in the running back room, and that was Aeneas, and he's in the red jersey, and I'm fine with that because he's shown he has the capacity to process information. He's helping the younger guys, but we need him as fresh as possible. We don't need him beat up coming out of the spring. He knows what to do, because every time he steps on the field, the boy produces, and he produces at high level. So I'm good with him sitting on the sideline in the red jersey, because he's established what his practice habits are. So that's not a question.
I was trying to get that red jersey when I was playing in the spring, but it never worked. But I
had it for like a week.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Well, there are quite a few guys that are limited in spring ball this year. And you mentioned Aeneas. We'll talk more about the running backs in a minute. But wide receiver, Jaden Greathouse, he's limited right now. He's not expected to get significant action until starting next week. One of the Ohio State transfers, Quincy Porter, he's going to be out until summer with a knee injury. But the other Ohio State transfer, Miles Graham, he's the one everybody's been talking about. He has looked really good right out of the gate. So he's somebody to keep an eye on. And keep in mind, he's from Fort Wayne, Indiana. He is he's 6'1", 192 pounds. Right now, it looks like he's at the slot with the number one offense, but they expect him to kind of move around with different formations as time goes on, as he gets more sort of comfortable. But he had some wow moments in that first practice. So he's one that people are really talking about. And of course, Jordan Faison at wide receiver, he's the leading returner at receiver, and he's looked every bit of that so far. As far as your tight ends go, Cooper Flanagan, you mentioned him. He was one of the guys that got caught up in one of those little skirmishes, and he even got his helmet ripped off to the ground. So he's got some fire in him, which I like to see that. Defensively, another guy who is limited this spring to start, at least maybe not expected for long, but to start out early, is actually Leonard Moore. He tweaked his ankle during spring break. So that's interesting, but Tay Johnson has been the one who's stolen the show so far. Of course, I mentioned that he had a couple of picks for CJ Carr. Another one to keep an eye on, Christian Gray. He's getting time at nickel. And speaking of another nickels and safety, freshman Nick Reddish. He's a freshman, and he's the one who had that pick 6 on Noah Grubbs. So some interesting movement out there. And I think, just we know how stacked that secondary is.
That's going to be interesting to see because, I just, you talk, they're kicking Christian in the slot. I think, again, the physical, he it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. So him and Tay are kind of flipping, basically. Is that what it's looking like?
Getting some, he's at least getting some action there. Mark has talked about being interested to see how Christian would fit in that position. So he's getting some time.
Because again, he strikes me as a good fit for that position because he's a more physical player. He pretty solid tackler, at least from his ability to work, play downhill. But I think again, I think he's better when he has help behind him, because when he's out on the corner, he's on an island. It doesn't go well for him. He does better in kind of like zone coverage, at least from my perspective.
No, I agree. I think Christian Gray is one of the more interesting players on the roster this year. Like as you bring in, multiple 2 transfer corners this year, like you've got guys already on the roster. Just it feels like of all the guys from last year that could potentially get squeezed out of a job, he kind of, I think, is the one to watch. Of who needs to have a big spring to really secure their spot, and as a starter, as a meaningful member of a rotation, not just like a special teams player. I think Christian Gray is at the top of my list of just guys who have the most to prove this offseason with the new defensive backs coach and everything that goes along with it. Like it's a big change for them. So that to me is, I think that's to me is like probably my number one question. It's just how the defensive back room all plays out this offseason. Go ahead, Alan.
And one thing to keep in mind, even though Christian Gray has some experience and there's other guys there with experience, because it's a new coach, that new coach acts like he's never seen a play. You might as well be a freshman to him, and I mean, I've gone through that before in the NFL when you get a new position coach and they are surprised that a good play you might make. I'm like, dude, didn't you watch the film when you came here? So there's that, and I'm sure some of that happened with Chris Ash too. Is they didn't have that relationship, so it's going to be key this year. But I can think that Christian Gray ends up at the slot because you got a new DB coach who's not aware of what he did at boundary corner, field corner, so that they just want to see what kind of skills they have. I'll give you another one. When Jack Pardee first got hired, I was a running back. He comes in here, puts me at the slot, and I remember in practice, I'm down at the end of the field with the pencil necks, or the receivers, and the running backs on the other end, and I'm yelling, "Hey, coach, get me out of this drill!" They're trying to make me a wide receiver or a slot guy when I'm a true running back. And so they figured it out after a while. But that's because, like I said, you got a new coach, doesn't know anything about you, and they have to see it on the practice field.
So the other thing that happened this weekend, Steve Wiltfong from On3, he put it this way, that this was one of the most impressive recruiting weekends in history. Multiple 5-star recruits, blue chip prospects. So Marcus Freeman, ho-hum, just doing like what Marcus Freeman does, bringing in great recruits and being there junior weekend and making sure these guys know what Notre Dame football is all about. But it got me thinking, one thing we have never really talked about is, Alan, Reggie, your first time on campus, what that visit's like. How quickly did you commit to Notre Dame? So Reggie, I'll start with you. Just what do you remember? Who was showing you around? Anything like that?
Well, my situation was different because I'd been on campus before, because my brother, we would always, after my high school games on Friday nights, we jump right in the van and drive up to South Bend to catch Notre Dame games. So I'd been on campus before, but I'd never been, around campus. I was always, you get there, you go to the stadium, I never really ventured into the interior of campus. So when I came on my recruiting visit in January, first of all, it's freaking cold. And I didn't have a coat. And so I'm from Oklahoma, so I'm thinking, January, I had a jacket. I'm good. No, And you would think, because I think I've mentioned this before, my recruiting host was my own brother. And I literally saw him one time when I first got there. You meet your host, and they give you some talking here and there.
He got the $20.
Yeah, he got his per diem money for hosting me.
Mm-hmm.
Did not see him again for the rest of my time there. So, and like in most places, you go, you don't venture outside of the outside of the sports or athletic facilities. Because like I said, I went Oklahoma State, and everything was, from a recruiting standpoint, you just were around athletes and, the players. Well, Notre Dame, they actually expect you to go to visit with academic people, and they are on campus, like inner part of campus. I hadn't been there. I've seen it. You can see the dome from the stadium, and it looks nice. Never been there though. So I'm trying to get and if you know anything about Coach Oates, he was a stickler for being on time, actually being early, and you need to show up ready for whatever you get. I'm literally lost. As small as Notre Dame is, how do you get lost in Notre Dame? But I had no map, no guide, and I'm trying to find my way to the main building. Well, what an academic meeting, had no clue where to go, and it just so happened the guy was like one of the grounds crew. He helped me get to my meeting on time, and it was like, thank you. But and I will say this: some of the funnest part of, like I said, my visit, and I would say Notre Dame was, in terms of a social dynamic, was my worst visit. I mean, it's nothing going on in Notre Dame. I mean, socially, life was. I mean, but the dorms were cool. The guys were cool. I mean, but they're single-sex dorms, so you're, if you're gonna meet up with a girl, you gotta, and then they have parietals, so you can't hang out in the dorm, in the girls' dorm. You got to get up out of there. And so, they had back then they had what's called SYRs, and so you go in there and run into people. I will say this, and no offense to anyone at Notre Dame or anything, but man, the RAs, their bar was immaculate. I mean, because you would have section parties and like whole floors and sections as well, party, and everybody, and man, you talking about they had all the drink you could consider, so whatever your drink of choice was, the RA had it, and they had handles of it. So if you were a bourbon guy, got you covered, vodka, gin, whatever it was. It was, and so I was,
you waited till you were 21 to start sipping on bourbon, though, right?
Oh hell no. I was drinking in high school. I'm gonna be honest. I was drinking in high school, so I was like, man, I'm rocking with this spot because back. So it was okay, but literally in terms of visits, I went to Arizona State.
Ooh,
yeah,
ooh,
yeah.
Very different.
Very different.
Very different.
Just the weather, though. That's it.
Yeah.
Just the weather. It's just warmer there. That's all.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Like sunbathing everywhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Everybody's in swimwear,
Especially on recruiting weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, wait a minute. Also, very, very nice view throughout the course of my visit there, but like Notre Dame, it was in January, so freezing your butt off.
Your brother couldn't give you a heads up that you needed a coat.
Nope.
To be honest, Reggie, like your brother, like it makes me feel like we're lucky to have that you went to Notre Dame. The way you talk about your recruiting visit and everything.
Set you up for failure.
Well, and that's the crazy thing is like a lot of the guys that you can ask Jerome, Bryant Young, Oliver Gibson. You go around Jim Flanagan, like that was kind of the thing. That was your worst visit, but it's like, if I come here, I'm less likely to get in trouble. That was really for most of the guys that, I played with, it was like, hey, I'm less likely to get in trouble coming here.
That first crowd did get in trouble.
Crowd.
My
brother was one of them. I mean, he stayed in trouble. Him and Ricky Waters, and
Lord.
I knew all those guys because, like I said, I was hanging out with them when I would come up for games.
Yeah.
But I mean, they stayed in trouble.
Well,
but it was like, comparatively speaking, you like Oklahoma State, Arizona State, Notre Dame was very tame. I mean, because some of I'm not going to share these recruiting visits because the one in Oklahoma was not. Yeah, that was insane.
Alan, tell me about your first visit. What it was like. Who hosted you? What you remember?
So Notre Dame was the last school to come in to recruit me, but they probably recruited me the hardest. They were the school that was the farthest west. I didn't know where the hell Notre Dame was until I got there. I thought it was in the Northeast somewhere. So my visit was in January. It was -20 in a blizzard, and that's the coldest weather I'd ever been into as an 18-year-old. But I fell in love with the place. Yeah, I really did. It just everything made sense, and I guess the thing that was revealing to me was the following weekend I went to the University of North Carolina for my official visit, and that was the first time I'd ever partied on a Thursday night. I had so much fun at North Carolina. It was a blast, but I think at that point Notre Dame had an effect on me. I woke up Friday morning and said, I'll never get any work done here. And so my decision was made. But the Dome has that effect on some people that it feels like home. It feels like this is what I'm looking for out of my college experience. And I wanted to go play in the NFL, but I was smart enough to realize that less than 1% of all college seniors make it on a roster. So I wanted to have a backup plan. And I think you have to think about that because, injuries can happen, and I even remember the coach from North Carolina saying, you don't want to go to Notre Dame. They're going to recruit, the best thing since sliced bread every year. And I'm like, well, that's what I want.
I want to compete.
Yeah. So I guess less eventful than Reggie. But when I went, you got to remember, you could still drink on campus. It was, which was 1982. 44 years ago is when I went on my. I don't think anybody here is that old, but 44 years ago I did my recruiting trip. But that's when each dorm had its own party. So the nightlife thing looked like it was taken care of, but a year later they had actually, banned those type of parties. And a party consisted of, if you doubled the size of your room, the people in your room, that was a party. And that was illegal. 2 years later is when they banned it. So you had to venture off campus if you wanted to have some fun.
Well, no, I mean, but like I said, I think they kind of became a little lenient because I know now it was a dry campus, whatever the hell that meant. But, you literally just couldn't. You couldn't bring more.
You couldn't bring it out in the hallway.
Yeah. So you had to stay in your room. Yeah. But back then, like I said, the RAs were so cool. So if you're in your section, if you cool with your RA, they're not tripping. And most times the rector is a priest and he's down on the main floor. So how are you gonna see him? And you could sneak people through the back. Stuff happens. But the party was, like I said, the SYRs. I thought those are awesome.
Do you
But-
know what SYR stands for, Joe?
Yes.
It
Oh,
stands
yeah.
for Shrew Your Roommate. So the whole point was your roommate would get a date for you, and usually it was a person that you were not attracted
Gotcha.
to, and that's the term
I
Screw
was
Your
like,
Roommate.
I don't know that one. I was like, you have to
yeah.
teach me some things.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take our last break here. When we get back, let's talk about some lawsuits because they're happening in the NCAA right now with Trinidad Chambliss, and I'm sure more are coming. So we'll talk some eligibility and just the kind of the state of college football. We'll do that next year on the Irish Squad Show. Today's episode of the Irish Squad Show is brought to you by Robinhood. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house, it's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long, use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter, and Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge, and now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission, merchant, and swap firm. And today's show is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Welcome to the 5 Hour Energy Flavor Draft. With 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy, there's something for everyone. The board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number one pick. And for me, it's always strawberry banana. It's my favorite. I love having it. Smoothies, milkshakes, all things like that. So it had to be my go-to for strawberry banana. I went and picked up some today because we're getting ready for baseball season as well. So I got some long nights coming up, so needed to have some on standby. Find your new favorite flavor of 5 Hour Energy shots right now, available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. All right, brief overview here. So Trinidad Chambliss, he's wants to go back to Ole Miss. He sues, goes to the court in Mississippi, and they say, yes, you're allowed to play a 6th year of college football. And 2 weeks ago now, a week and a half ago at this point, the NCAA comes back, they counter sue, and they want him to say, no, you're not welcome. You're done. Your eligibility is over with. And guys, we're seeing Indiana, have all these 22, 23-year-old players, and it's happening all the time. And it felt like, for me, it was just going to be a COVID thing when they gave everyone that extra year, but it's gone past that. And players are suing, they're winning. We're seeing basketball players try to sign with the G League and then go back to college. It's kind of chaos right now. So, Alice, I'm just, where are you at with this story? And just maybe just even what eligibility rules should be in college and how long you should be allowed to play college athletics?
Well, I find this fascinating because it sets a precedent moving forward, I think. And it should be noted that if people who aren't familiar, Trinidad Chambliss is the quarterback. So this is a high profile position and he would be returning. So now this is a lot of like he said, she said that. So it's a lot of back and forth. And what he's claiming is that in 2022, he was sick basically and he had a diagnosis of tonsillitis, and it severely impacted his ability to play. And this lasted for 2 years. So he's saying he wants a medical red shirt for the 2022 season at Ferris State, where he was for the chronic tonsillitis and respiratory issues. And he ended up having a surgery in 2024. And the NCAA says, well, he had the 5-year rule. He didn't turn in a sufficient amount of documentation. He submitted 91 pages of medical documentation. So I don't know how much is enough, but he had chronic tonsillitis, adenoiditis, and another word that I can't even read, adenocellular hypertrophy. So whatever that means. But he had all of these different symptoms. And basically the NCAA says, well, he had the opportunity, he could have gotten surgery earlier. He chose not to, and he suffered through it. So he had his chance, and they need to move on. And the one thing that I do think we should be considered in this, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm not saying he should be granted or should not be granted, but the judge who made the decision to grant him the eligibility that ruled in favor of Chambliss, well, take a wild guess where he went to law school.
Not Mississippi State.
Correct. He went to Ole Miss Law School. He is a past president of the Ole Miss Law Alumni Chapter. He's a long-term resident and lives in Oxford, Mississippi. And get this, his wife worked as a professor at Ole Miss. His son also is an Ole Miss alum and is in the Hall of Fame there. So to say the least, he is an Ole Miss fan. So, and I think you're going to see that though. And like you said, Reggie, in a lot of these states, it's hard to not have these connections or ties to the school. So I don't know how you can, truly make an unbiased ruling on all of this. But the reason I think it's so interesting is because of this. And mind you, I told you I've got pages and pages of notes on this because I just thought it was really interesting. But this ruling has sparked a wave of similar lawsuits. So they've got over 60 cases filed right now by more than 100 student athletes. And that includes, remember, Diego Pavia, he went through this, I think, just last year. So they're starting to see, a new thing coming, and they're looking at this as a breach of contract in state courts. And it's an argument. Do you want it through the state courts? Do you want it to go through the federal? But here is one that is fascinating. And I'll probably butcher his name, but he is currently at Montana. His name is Solomon Tuliaupupu. And he is a linebacker and a defensive end, currently at Montana. He started his career at USC, where he's already earned both his bachelor's degree and his master's degree. He will be turning 26 this month. And he was granted a 9th year of eligibility due to a career of devastating injuries. So he started at USC. He had 2 season-ending foot injuries, 2 ACLs, and an undisclosed illness. He graduated high school in 2017, but he missed all 4 of his years from 2018 to 2021. And he only has actually played a little bit in 2022 at USC, and then he played 24 and 25 at Montana. That is insane. That's incredible to me. So if you're allowing this guy to have 9 years of eligibility, how do you tell anybody they can't keep going?
Yeah, well, the one thing the NCAA knows how to do is lose in court.
Yeah. I know it's hard because I went to school for 4.5 years, right? And if I struggled in school or just needed more time or changed my majors a bunch, I could just keep going and going and going until I was ready to be done with college. I can go back to college tomorrow if I wanted to. So I get why players kind of have this right to go to college.
But you're paying for yourself to go to college for as long as you want.
Yeah.
And these guys are not. And they're getting paid and they're getting NIL money. And that's why Chambliss really wants to come back.
Yeah. Alan, so from a playing perspective, how long should we let guys play for? Is 5 years, 6 years, should it just be 4? What is your thoughts on college eligibility and how it should work out?
I'm comfortable with the 5 years to get 4 years of play in, but you become eligible for the pros after 3 years. And so, I think once you establish that you're ready for the NFL, get the hell out of school, because if your stock is real high as a junior, all you'll do coming back as a senior is create a situation where now they're looking for something that's wrong with you. So if you can prove within those first 2 or 3 years that you're worthy of playing in the NFL, go. But I'm sort of in favor of the 5 years. I don't mind the red shirt year just to become accustomed to life away from mom and dad and on a college campus. But have some guys abused the current system? Yeah, probably. And now that they can get paid, there's even more enticement to come back to the school, because yeah, they can get paid in college. They might not make a check in the NFL because they might not make the NFL. And when I look at Chambliss, this might be his last opportunity. I think when I look at him, and I don't want to insult the kid, but I see him as, probably a third-day pick in the NFL, and maybe not even making a roster. So this is not only a chance for him to help Ole Miss win, but the last chance to really get that huge payday that he can get in college. So where I stand.
Reggie?
Well, again, my issue is with the NCAA and the fact that not just the NCAA, but everybody. No one is incorporating the student athletes in the process of, how things operate. How do we function as an institution, and everybody's kind of reverting to their fiefdoms and what's in their best interest, and just have student athletes present at any negotiations in the process to say, okay, hey, what makes sense? And again, these young people, they don't know everything, but they're not idiots. Because again, if because I know this has had a negative effect on high school kids, that are coming out, and we're forgetting about. What is college sports about? Now that you've inserted money, then that's the only thing that matters, which is asinine. No one's talking about these kids when they go to school, or if they're actually going to class, the ones that do, and they're trying to get an education for an opportunity post-career, athletic career. But I just don't understand why it's so hard to incorporate the individuals that are most affected by this legislation. Because, to be honest with you, like I said, if you have something where, like the basketball player that you made a choice. You can't come back from that because it was stated. If you leave, that's it. If you put your name in the draft and you get, signed here and there, you're a professional, boom. But until they determine, are we going to make athletes professionals or employees at the collegiate level, you're going to continue to get this cycle of, sue, counter sue, your cousin and your third removed ancestor, because hell, I had an extra year of eligibility. I chose because I finished. I left.
Go play now.
I want to, yeah. So can I come back?
Can you replace Jeremiah Love this year? How you feeling, Reggie?
But like I said, the common sense aspect of things are out the window because everybody's focused on the money, and everybody's forgotten about what college sports was about, are supposed to be about. And, think about the next generation of high school kids coming out. Do you want, like I said, I'm a father of 5. I wouldn't want my 17, 18-year-old son playing against a grown-ass man. I would have a real problem with that. And, dang, bro, go on with your life. This is ridiculous. But it's not, you're going to continue to get suit after suit because no one is willing to sit down and actually have a conversation with the people most impacted by this, and their parents. Because have you heard anything from a prospective student athlete? Be honest with you, have you heard anything from Chambliss himself?
Not really.
This is attorney.
Right. He's not allowed to speak. Right.
Yeah. Somebody's telling, well, I can get you this. I can do this for you. Come on. Let's use some common sense. I'm all for athletes getting paid, but there needs to be some sort of structure around this, but it needs to incorporate the people that are impacted by it.
And you use the right word. You use structure, not regulation.
Right.
Structure is the proper word, because
The NCAA, again, their whole focus is, preserving their, that's why they're suing us, because they have what is their purpose?
They're no longer
They're
have
not,
any control.
if they're not, so if they lose again, if they lose this, why do we need you?
Yeah, it's really
what
strange
value
because
is providing?
even like with this lawsuit, like I feel like it spits in the face of like what the NCAA already allows. I'm gonna butcher this guy's name, but I think it's Mihajlo Petrovic. He's he plays for University of Illinois basketball team. He's a freshman this year. He's 23. He came from Serbia, so like the rules don't apply.
right.
So it's like even like in like a sanctioned sport in March Madness in the Sweet 16, you got 23-year-old freshmen, and it's like, but then you're trying to stop Chambliss from playing at 6th year. Like it's very strange how they handle all of this. Even like the coaches might have 9 games for.
But BYU
you
has
look at
guys
other
that go on a
sports,
mission,
too,
2-year mission, and
You gotta
so
look at
it's
other
nothing to
sports,
have
too.
a 25-year-old at BYU.
Yeah,
Hockey. Hockey players. They
Mhm.
they go off and do junior league, come back, full ass beard, and they're out there playing.
yeah.
Well, and it's not just them.
They got gray in their beard.
They got track and field. They'll go get these kids from the Middle East or from Africa to run distance, and and they're pros in Europe. They're pros in Africa, and they bring them over here. But they've been doing that for a long time. But why was that never a concern? Because it wasn't making any money.
Exactly.
Right.
So now that you have this, you incorporate money, and that's the other thing. Who came up with that $20 million number?
Yeah.
Who arbitrarily? Well, hey, let's just throw this out there: $20 million. Because how many schools are bringing in considerably more in revenue on a consistent basis?
Last time Clemson won the national championship, they brought in $80 million.
Wow.
That's crazy.
And they had to share with
And
the
they had to share.
ACC.
Mm-hmm.
What? And that was just football.
Yes.
What about basketball?
Joe, what will be interesting with Chambliss is if they end up now ruling that he doesn't have that eligibility, he will have missed out on his opportunity for the NFL draft this season.
Yeah.
Then what happens? He just has to sit
So
and wait a whole year?
there's
Draft.
a supplemental draft, which
Okay.
and it's the pick next year. Like the only player I can think of that's like been worth anything that's gone in that was Terrell Pryor. When he got in trouble at Ohio State, he went in the supplemental draft. And I think the Raiders took him in like the 6th round of that draft. So like that's kind of where he's at.
Canadian League too.
Yeah, go to Canadian League, or I think the Arena League, or the UFL, or whatever it's called these days. Like there's a team here in
I think it's
Houston.
still UFL. I think
Yeah, whatever they call it now,
It
the
could change
XFL.
it could change next week.
Yeah, but like, so he'll have options, but like, it puts the players in a bad spot too, because the longer this draws out, the worse it is for Chambliss, and that's why I'm surprised he's going through it. Like Chase Daniel, the former Mizzou quarterback, has been adamant that Chambliss is the 3rd best quarterback in this draft, and in my mind, I'm like, well, if he's the 3rd best quarterback in this draft, then why does he want to go to college? Because that sounds like a 3rd round pick to me with multiple years of guaranteed salary. So it's all strange, and it won't be the last we have of discussions like this. And we'll be back. And starting in 2 weeks, we'll start our top 10 Notre Dame player countdown of all time. It's an irishsquadshow@gmail.com. You can send in your top 10 list. People have taken some liberties with it, so this list is going to be interesting, but we're going to take them as you send them. So send us your top 10. It's irishsquadshow@gmail.com. We'll start that up in 2 weeks. And guys, I'm just glad there's a semblance of football back in our lives as well. So that will do it for this episode of the Irish Squad Show. We'll talk to you guys next Monday. Peace.